Dear students, I welcome you all to the session on Jacobean age. It is given another name also. It is also called Shakespearean age. When Elizabethan age and Jacobean age they are combined, they are given the name Shakespearean age. Now, if we look at the period of the time during which Shakespeare lived, tentatively it is argued that he lived during the period 1567 to 1616. He did have a number of nicknames. He was known as Bard of Heaven. He was also known as the Bard. And when he died, he was buried in the Holy Trinity Church. There is a graveyard, and the name of that graveyard, you must be aware of that, that is known as Stratford upon Avon, and that is established in United Kingdom. Now, if we look at the Jacobean age, and the Elizabethan age, we will come to know that both the ages, the periods of these ages, they are combined in the Shakespearean age. Now, if we look at the period of Jacobean age, then roughly the span of period was from 1603 to 1625, and then Elizabeth, Elizabethan age spans over the period 1558 to 1603. Now, therefore, if you look at Shakespearean period, you will come to know that in fact Shakespearean is almost from literary point of view combined both the ages. And therefore, when somebody refers to Shakespearean age, you have to talk about the features of both the ages. Now, yesterday we talked about the development of drama. In brief, I briefed you everything, and in detail, we talked about the miracles, and then we talked about the morality play. Then I also talked about the interludes and the four P's, one of the famous interludes that came into being during, let me say, a little later after Renaissance, and then came into being the first comedy and the first tragedy. Now, if you look at the first English comedy, the name of the first English comedy was Nicola Idal's. It was written by Nicola Idal, and that is why it is called as Nicola Idal's Ralph Royster Doyster. Now, what was the name of the first English comedy? Ralph Royster Doyster, and it was published in the year, that is, it came into being in 1553. It was written by a very famous writer, and the name of the writer was Nicola Idal. Now, after that, one of the most famous classical comedies also came into being, and the name of the comedy was Needle, and uh, it was written by an unknown writer. We do not know who was the writer who wrote it, but the tentative year of publication is 1575, and the full name of the comedy was Gamar Gurton's Needle. Gamar Gurton's Needle, and in short, we call it Needle. So these were the two famous comedies that came into being, and the first famous English comedy, or the first English comedy that came into being, was Ralph Royster Doyster. It came into being in 1553, and it was written by Nicola Idal. Then the first complete tragedy was written uh, by a very famous person. It was Gorbadak. The name of the tragedy was Gorbadak, and it was written by Morton. Now he was not alone. Some of the people say that he wrote it alone, but then some of the people say that it was a joint venture of Morton and Thomas Sackville. But so you need to remember that Gorba Duck was the first English tragedy that came into being, and it was written by Thomas Morton and Thomas Sackville. Now, on the pattern of the same tragedy was written another tragedy, a number of tragedy. In fact, three, four tragedies were written during this period on the pattern of the first English tragedy. The second famous English tragedy that came into being during this period was The Misfortunes of Arthur. The Misfortunes of Arthus, Arthus, and it was written in the year 1588. Now, this was also one of the famous tragedies that came into being during this era. Now, the other day I talked about the university wits. I said that there appeared a race of writers before Shakespeare, and they were seven in number, and these writers are called the university wits. Now, these writers were seven in number, and they included Lilly, Peel, Green, Lowes, Nash, Keed, and Marlowe. These were the seven writers who belonged to the university wits. Some of them wrote comedies, and some of them wrote tragedies, and some of them simply wrote romances, which can somewhere be kept into the category of the tragic comedies. Now, as far as Lily is concerned, Lily wrote only romantic comedies. Peel also wrote comedies, and his one of the famous comedies is The Old Wives' Tales. This is the comedy that he wrote. And then came Keed. And now Keed was a famous tragedian. He wrote the Spanish tragedy. That was one of the play that he wrote, and it was modeled on Seneca's tragedy. Seneca wrote revenge tragedies. Now, the Spanish tragedy was modeled on the tragedy which were written by Seneca. Now then came on the stage Marlowe. Christopher Marlowe was his full name, and as you are all aware, he died at a very early age. He wrote four tragedies, and the famous tragedy that he wrote was Dr. Faustus, that is prescribed in your syllabus also. Perhaps in the next semester you will study this tragedy. And he wrote three other very famous tragedy also. In fact, these things in detail about these tragedies you will come to know in the next semester. But then these are the names which you need to remember about the playwrights or the dramatists who belonged to this era. Now then on the stage descended Shakespeare. William Shakespeare, it is being said that this is not the real name of the person concerned, because even the face that is shown on the books and that is depicted by several other people, it is being said that he committed some crime and therefore he was punished. In order to escape that punishment, he used to wear a mask so that he may not be identified by the people. And it was a pseudonym that he has assumed for himself, and there may not be, it means Shakespeare may not be the real name of the person whom we call Shakespeare today. Now Shakespeare in total written 37 plays. Now he wrote four types of plays. He wrote comedies, he wrote tragedies, he wrote tragicomedies, and then he wrote historical plays also. How many types of plays? Comedies, tragedies, tragicomedies, and then finally historical plays. Now, it was with Shakespeare that the romantic, in a way, I would say, although the glimpses were there in the earlier work also, but then romantic tragedy flowered when Shakespeare descended on the stage and started writing and staging the comedies. Now, when we talk about the romantic and the classical comedies, classical comedy means there would be no tinge or hint of unhappiness during the course of the play. It will be absolutely the comical play. But in the case of romantic comedy, it was more lifelike, because Shakespeare and the persons who followed him, they believed in the notion that life is not absolutely comic, neither is it absolutely tragic, and therefore whatever the art that you are writing, it must be a mingling of the two. Now, in the case of comedy, it may be the comic element that may excel the tragic element, and vice versa, but then it must be a composition of both types of elements. So a number of comedies were written. Shakespearean plays, they were comedies, they were tragedies, they were tragicomedies, and they were historical plays which were written, which came into being during this era. Now, if we talk about Shakespearean comedies, the famous Shakespearean comedies were Twelfth Night or Our Twelfth Night, As You Like It, Merchant of Venice, Much Ado About Nothing, Comedy of Errors, Love's Labour Lost, The Gentleman of Verona, All Is Well That Ends Well, Major for Major, Croilus and Cressida. Now, these are the comedies that Shakespeare wrote. Troilus and Cressida, you need to remember this name because it seems to be written towards the end of his life, but then sometimes in the examination they ask you who wrote Troilus and Cressida, and therefore, usually this comedy is not prescribed. We need to remember this name. Even all the other names need to be remembered, but then this, from a pragmatic point of view, particularly need to be remembered. Right, so let me repeat what I have said. Shakespeare wrote a number of comedies. He wrote Twelfth Night, he wrote As You Like It, he wrote Merchant of Venice, he wrote Much Ado About Nothing, he wrote Comedy of Errors, he wrote Love's Labour Lost, he wrote The Gentleman of Verona, he wrote All Is Well That Ends Well, he wrote Major for Major, and he wrote Troilus and Cressida. Now, these are the plays which can be included in the category of comedies. Now, if we look at the features of Shakespearean comedies, we will find that primarily they are marked with humor. Or if we talk about the theme of Shakespearean comedies, we will come to know that it is humor and love that dominate the theme of Shakespearean comedies. Humor, there is morbid humor also, there is pleasuresome humor also, and there is humor that makes you aware of the practical realities of life. Now, if you look at the As You Like It, all these humors in every comedy, in almost every somber comedy of Shakespeare has been given a space. So, humor does not mean simply the pleasurable activity that has found a space in Shakespearean plays, but it means all types of humors which constitute the part of Shakespearean comedies. Now, besides humor, if you look at the theme of Shakespearean comedy, you will find it is love that is the theme, and more appropriately, the romantic love. And if we further classify this romantic love, then we would say it is love at first sight, usually, and then this love sometimes is blended with the pastoral elements. Means usually the Shakespearean comedies are the pastoral romance. Any comedy that you study, you will find that Shakespeare has so deftly dealt with the theme of love that it does not seem to be a love that has descended from the fairyland, but it seems to be a love belonging to this world in which there are ups and downs, in which there is a struggle, and in which one has to fight a lot to sustain himself in the battle. So, that sort of love has been depicted in Shakespearean comedies. So, when anybody, although it is romantic love, but then this romantic love is different from the love which comes from the fairyland. It is the romantic love of this world, which is which in which the ups and downs of life find a place. Right, so this is the type of love that finds a space in this comedy. Then there are a lot of songs in the play. In Shakespearean comedies, you will find that there are a lot of songs, and these songs are very educative sometimes. They are pleasuresome, they enhance the comic spirit of the play, but at the same time, they not only enhance, but they also enhance the comic spirit, but they educate the people, they educate the reader, so they are educative also in their approach. Now they are being sung not only by the people who belong to a sort of, let me say, band of the people who are involved in this sort of activity, but even a person, as we sing in our life, for example, when we are bathing, when we are going, we usually everybody sings. Now, in the same way, here also everybody is singing, and they are singing to to give a moral lesson to the reader, so that out of the listening they may draw something. So this point you need to keep in mind about Shakespeare songs. Then it is being said about Shakespearean comedies that it is the heroines that outshine the heroes in Shakespearean comedies. Now, any example, any Shakespearean heroine will outshine the hero. Beatrice and Benedict, Orlando and Rosalind, and several other examples. In every case, it is the heroine that excels in virtues and merits in comparison to the hero. And if you make a comparison, it seems that Shakespearean heroes, they emerge, or they are found standing like fools and stupid in the Shakespearean comedies, and the Shakespearean heroines, they seem to be dominating the whole scene. Now, Shakespearean comedies are not simply, they are not simply about realism and romance, they are not simply about romance, but then there are realistic tinges also. Now, as I said to you, the love that is there in Shakespearean comedy has not descended, or is not the love belonging to the fairyland, but that is the love of the common man. And therefore, it is very realistic. So, what we find, it has to pass through struggle, as the love of a common man, as the love of a worldly person has to. If we look at the love of Orlando, if we look at the love of Oliver, or any other body's love, any other hero's love, we will find that there are obstacles and hindrances. But ultimately, it is the true love that wins at the end. Despite all the obstacles, all the obstacles are cleared, and then the true love is the ultimate winner. So basically, all Shakespearean comedies, they revolve around romance and realism. This is what we would say. Romance, of course, it is through romance that realism has been brought into vogue. After having talked about Shakespearean comedies, because in detail you will do it in the next semester, but then in brief, I have tried to summarize what are the basic themes in Shakespearean comedies. Now, after having done Shakespearean comedies, let me come to Shakespearean tragedies. Shakespeare wrote a number of Shakespearean tragedies, and among them, the most famous four are Othello, King Lear, Hamlet, and Macbeth. Now, besides this, he also wrote a number of he wrote also wrote a number of tragedies. Like Julius Caesar is also one of the famous tragedies that was written by Shakespeare. Now there is a critic, A.C. Bradley. He has thoroughly studied, he has researched these tragedies, and he has come out with a finding that in the character, that in means the hero does carry a sort of flaw, and that is the flaw, or that is the defect of the character. So every Shakespearean hero carries a flaw of the character, and it is this flaw, it is this defect which causes the doom of the hero, which causes the doom or the absolute extinction of the hero. Now, what is it? Now, it will differ from tragedy to tragedy. For example, when we talk about Macbeth, the basic tragic flaw in the character of Macbeth is that he is over ambitious. Now, when we talk about Hamlet, then his indecisiveness. He cannot take a timely decision, and therefore has to meet his doom. or untimely destruction. If we look at the other two plays, King Lear. King Lear meets his doom because he is very egoist. Likewise, Othello also meets his doom because of the flaw that he has. Now, these are the most famous tragedies in which every Shakespearean hero has got a flaw. And likewise, if you look at the other Shakespearean tragedies also, you will find that every Shakespearean hero has got a defect in his character, and it is this defect that causes his downfall. In Shakespearean tragedies, it is the fate and the character which play a very vital role. In fact, it is the fate and the character that ultimately decides what the hero is or what the hero continues to be. Now, all the plays of Shakespeare, they are the examples of abnormal psychology. They depict or project the abnormal psychology, and they are replete with supernatural elements. All the Shakespearean plays means all the Shakespearean tragedies, they are replete with the supernatural elements. There is an element of conflict. There is a conflict between good and evil, and ultimately it is the good that wins over the evil. But then sometimes it may be the evil that also wins. Now, Shakespeare did, I would like to tell you here that Shakespeare did have a very practical notion of this world, and therefore a very practical notion of justice also. He believed that in this world it is not always the good that is rewarded, but sometimes it is the good that is punished also, and it is the evil that thrives. And therefore, sometimes Shakespeare is being criticized on the ground. And what is the ground? That in fact his plays do not contribute anything to the very basic purpose of literature. And what is the basic purpose of literature? The basic purpose of literature is to educate the people on the issues of morality. In that very basic purpose, the Shakespearean plays fail. But then here I would like to argue, as I said earlier, that Shakespeare did have a wider notion of justice, and in this wider notion of justice, we know he believed in the practical world. And in the practical world, it is not always the good, it is not always the what I would say the justness that thrives, but sometimes it may be the evil also that thrives. And the same sort of concept has been taken by Shakespeare, but it does not mean that Shakespeare was a Machiavellian child. He was not a Machiavellian child at all. But then the point that he tried to project through the plays, that when we talk about the concept of justice, it may not always be in the form of the victory of good over the evil. Shakespearean tragedies are replete with supernatural elements. There are ghosts, there are witches, there are the other supernatural powers in the play, like there are storms and so on and so forth. And these supernatural elements, there are apparitions also. These supernatural elements, they in a way try to guide or misguide, and in a way misguide is more appropriate word, misguide the person who becomes, who gets himself entangled in the maneuvering of these supernatural elements. Now all these Shakespearean plays, they project a moral vision also. And when I say Shakespearean plays, I mean to say Shakespearean tragedies. And what is that moral vision? The moral vision is that one's destiny is designed and determined by one's character. Whatever you do, and thereby you form your character, you are the architect of your character, and therefore you are also the architect of your destiny, because it is on the basis of the character that the destiny will be will be made or will come up. So moral vision. Now, after having talked about this, the Shakespearean tragedies, let me talk about Shakespeare also wrote the historical plays. And if we talk about the roughly the span of these historical plays of Shakespeare, we will find that the span of the period is around 350 years, and it is from 1200 to 1550. This is the period, this is the time over which the historical plays is spent. Now, among the famous historical plays that Shakespeare wrote, Henry VI, and there are three parts of Henry VI: first, second, and third. Then he wrote Richard II. He wrote Richard III also. He wrote King John. He wrote Henry IV. And there are two parts of it, part 1 and part 2. And then he wrote Henry V. These are the famous historical plays and Shakespearean concept, what we have talked about, the concept of love, humor, and all that they are not applicable to these plays. After having talked about these plays, let me go to the final group of plays that Shakespeare wrote, and they are usually known as either romances or a mingling of the tragic and the comic, that is tragicomedies. And you need to remember these names because they are very significant. And usually they are not found in the past books or the second hand books that you people usually take recourse to. And therefore, I would suggest you to take down all these four names. Pericles was the first tragicomedy that Shakespeare wrote. Then came Cymbeline, Pericles, Pericles, Pericles. Then Cymbeline, Cymbeline, and then the Winter's Tale, and finally the Tempest. So Shakespeare wrote four tragicomedies. Number one, Pericles; number two, Cymbeline; number three, The Winter's Tale; and number four, The Tempest. So, in total, this is in brief a description of the Shakespearean plays that he wrote. As I said to you, besides plays, Shakespeare also wrote sonnets and one or two love poems also. And the sonnets, the form of the sonnet that he made use of was the English sonnet form. And because he marvelously made use of these sonnets or this form of sonnet, it also in the long run came to be known as Shakespearean sonnet. Now, I would like to repeat what I have said. If you remember, I had said that this form was introduced by Bayard. He was a famous Elizabethan writer or poet into English. And later on, Shakespeare followed him. Later on, Shakespeare followed him. He went to the house of the lady, and then he he went to the house. Shakespeare, I'm sorry, Shakespeare made use of this form, the form of the Shakespearean sonnet or the English sonnet, and it comprises three quatrains and one couplet. Three quatrains multiplied by four will be equal to 12, and then a couplet 2 into 1, 2 into 1 will be equal to 2, and this is how the total lines will be 14. All right, so this is a brief of Shakespearean plays. I explained it to you earlier that Shakespeare was both a playwright and dramatist also, because he wrote the plays and staged them too. And therefore, the plays, the stage, there was a stage that has been given the name Elizabethan stage or Shakespearean stage. Now, there were certain features of that stage. I'm not going to talk about the features of that stage, but then you need to keep in mind that it was in accordance with the contemporary times. After having talked about this, let me talk about the contemporaries who were there, in fact, a little earlier than Shakespeare. If you remember, I talked about Ben Jonson, and primarily he wrote comedies. Every Man in His Humor is one of the best comedies that he wrote. Then John Webster was a person who wrote only tragic plays, and there are two tragic plays of his which are very famous. And the name of these tragic plays are Duchess of Malfi and The White Devil. What are the name? The Duchess of Malfi and The White Devil. These were the two plays that he wrote. Now, after that, Thomas Middleton was another famous writer who was a contemporary of these people, and he wrote only farcical plays. And one of the famous farcical plays that he wrote is A Mad World, My Masters. A Mad World, My Masters. This was one of the famous plays or farcical plays that he wrote. Now, besides these playwrights, there were Francis Beaumont, and then there was John Fletcher also. Francis Beaumont and John Fletcher. Now, Francis Beaumont and John Fletcher, they wrote comedies in collaboration with each other, and one of the famous comedy that they wrote tragedies also. One of the famous comedies that they wrote was A King and No King. What was the title of that comedy? A King and No King. And then the famous tragedy that he wrote, the title of that famous tragedy was The Mad Tragedy and Philaster. The Mad Tragedy and Philaster. This was the tragedy that these people, Francis Beaumont and John Fletcher, wrote. So, in brief, what I have tried to talk about how the drama developed in the from Renaissance to Jacobean period. We started talking about the play from Mysteries or the Miracles, and said that basically when we talk about the miracles, there were two primary features of these plays. They dealt with the life of the saints, and their primary purpose was to provide, to means they were related to Christianity, and therefore the primary task of a playwright was to educate the people on the Christianity tenets. Now, number two, here the 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 abstract form of the characters used to play a part. And when I talk about abstraction of characters, I talk about sin, I talk about love, I talk about lie, I talk about truth. Now, these were the characters who used to participate in the plays. Now, from the mystery developed the morality play. Morality play, basically, they exhibited a conflict between good and evil, and they were the means to show victory of the good over the evil. They exhibited the victory of the good over the evil. That was the basic purpose of the morality play. Now, from the morality play, now the characters were no more the abstractions, but they were the lifelike people. From the morality play developed the interludes. From the interludes, the first comedy and first tragedy, and then the other writers came, and who were university wits. And from the university wits, you will find that there were writers like Ben Jonson and John Webster. They were followed by Francis Beaumont and John Fletcher and Thomas Middleton also. And finally, Shakespeare descended on the scene, the dramatic scene, and as you know, he is known as the Kalidas of Europe. He is known as the Kalidas of Europe, means he was a very, very famous writer. He was a very, very famous writer. Right? So these are the things which you need to remember, which you need to remember Why do you need to remember? You need to remember in order to have something very significant about the Jacobian age, of which is prescribed for your study. So I stop it here. Tomorrow we will start at the same time, but in a way, what we will do, we will revise the syllabus and we will discuss if there is any problem. Otherwise, as far as the completion of the course is concerned, it is over from my side. If you have got any query, you are most welcome. I would be happy to answer your query. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.